I'll fire this thing up.
Okay, we are now recording.
Okay, are you sure? Yeah, I see it. Call to order the budget meeting for Wednesday, April 28th at 7:01. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bennett,
Here.
Councilor Harris,
Here.
Councilor Myers. Here. Councilor Stratus,
Present.
Councilor Drott,
Here.
committee member Maureen, forgive me, I don't know your last name,
Weathers.
Weathers. She's present.
Here, yes, sorry.
Thank you. Committee member George. Here. Committee member Drott.
Here.
Everybody is present, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
And Councilor Myers.
Okay. And, okay, first item here we have here is the selection of the budget committee chairman officer. Do we have a nomination?
Nominate Landrot.
Okay, we have a nomination for Lon Drott. Do we have a second?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, we have a second for Lon Drott. Do we have discussion? Okay, not seeing or hearing any. All those in favor of Lon Drott for committee chairman, signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I don't see any opposed. Do we need to have a vice chairman? Okay, I didn't see the need from anybody wanting a vice chairman. We'll just go with the chairman. Okay, with that being said, Lon Drott, you are now in charge.
Okay, I'll be looking for an approval of the minutes or of the agenda, sorry.
Approval?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
I have a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing those, all in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Next, we'll be looking for an approval of the minutes of the Budget Committee meeting from June 2nd of 2020.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the Budget Committee from June 2020.
I'll second it.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll move on. I don't have anything under old business. So starting with new business, we'll have the presentation of the fiscal year 2021-22 proposed budget. Jeremy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a PowerPoint presentation that I am going to pull up. Bear with me just one moment, please. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, City Councilors, committee members, citizens of Lowell, good evening. I'm happy to present to you tonight the City Administrator's recommended budget for the fiscal year starting July 1, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022. I have about a 20-minute presentation where I'll hit the highlights on the recommendations. At that point, I'll pause for questions and then I'll be happy to dive into the budget detail. First thing that I wanted to emphasize is my approach to putting these budget numbers together was articulating a plan for City Council to achieve its chief goals. Those are the library project, the parks renovation project, and the downtown master plan. The budget is a plan in itself, and Something else that I would emphasize as we get into these projects is a lot of what we're trying to do depends on contingencies such as grant funding, successfully selling and marketing city properties. So we need to keep in mind that, like with any plan, flexibility is required. We might have to rearrange things as we get into the next budget year, depending on the situations. Before I get into those projects, I want to touch on our local economic activity. In late 2020, the Planning Commission approved what is one of the largest residential projects that we've had in several years. This is the Crestview Estates subdivision project, which is slated to build 26 single-family homes. Please note that in the recommended budget on page 3, it says 16 lots. It's actually 26, and I have the plat up here. If we assume that each home has a value of $350,000, that's going to bring in about $20,000 in property taxes. So this is going to be a benefit to the property tax base as well. When I last checked the building log, we have about 4 open building permits for new home construction. And the Bridgeway Contracting Company contacted me yesterday, and they are getting close to phase 1 of their project off of Mott Street to build a mixed-use development. So all of that is going to benefit the tax base, and it just goes to show that the demand is pretty high. So the first major project that I want to talk about is our parks project. You see this picture on the left is a concept plan for Rolling Rock Park. And this budget presents some options for us to implement the recommendations from our park master plan to turn this project into a reality. In 2020, the city applied for grant funding from the Local Government Grant Program, LGGP, and the Land and Wildlife Conservation Fund, LWCF. Both of those grants were about $214,000. The plan was to take the LWCF money or the LGGP money and apply that as a match for the LWCF money. I received notification in February that we would not be getting the LGGP grant. I received notification this week that it is very likely that we will receive the Local Government Conservation and Wildlife Fund grant. So the question is, if we're going to receive these monies, how do we meet the match requirements? This grant is on a reimbursement basis. We have to pay the money first, and they reimburse us 50%. There are a couple options. I recently applied for grant funding for AARP and Travel Oregon for a total of about $130,000 for Rolling Rock Park. These are competitive grants, and for budget purposes, I'm hopeful that it's not something I would count on. So the next best option, or possibility rather, would be debt financing. This budget has loan proceeds of $500,000. With that and the LWCF monies, we would meet the grant match requirements and complete phase 1 of this project. As specified in the Parks Master Plan, my recommendation to City Council would be, if we go with that option, is to find additional resources to pay the debt service on that. The Parks Master Plan mentions a utility fee, $13 per month, or a special tax election, requesting voter approval for additional revenues to pay off that debt. That's a lot to consider, and I would urge City Council to carefully weigh those options as we try to implement this project. I'll also say that we will know by June if we do get those monies. In July, they would have a grant contract for us to sign. They also said we're going to have to complete an archaeological study of Rolling Rock Park. That'll be about $10,000. The next big project is the Downtown Master Plan. This area shows the delineated downtown. It also shows the code updates that we are working on for the downtown area. That is the first deliverable in the downtown master plan, is updating the codes. That's at virtually no cost to us. Lane Council of Governments is leading that project, and the only cost for us is staff time and some website maintenance to help them out with that. That project is slated for completion by the end of summer or early fall. The budget also addresses our strategy regarding the East Main Street properties that the city owns in this area right here where my cursor is pointing. The city made a strategic decision in 2020 to acquire these two lots because they were zoned residential, but they are perfectly located within the area of the downtown that we're targeting, and they are ripe for commercial development. So this budget anticipates the sale of these properties and the allocation of those sales proceeds to pay off the debt that the city used to acquire these two properties. The next major project is the library renovation project. This budget anticipates completion of the library renovation project. The budget includes an appropriation of $307,000. This is an increase 15% of what was originally budgeted based on the increase in construction costs. That is partially offset by grant revenues that we are seeking to pay for this project. I would also stress that this time next year, once the library is up and running, we'll probably be having a conversation about the amount of resources that we're going to need to direct to the library. We have questions that we're going to have to consider regarding our collections maintenance, programming for library patrons, and things of that nature. So that's something else that we need to keep in mind. This budget also includes funding for water and sewer master planning. This isn't a direct goal of City Council, but it gets to our ability to grow and address our infrastructure needs. So this would have a water and sewer master plan that our city engineer would complete. These are both budgeted in the system development charge funds. And what this would do is it would identify the demands, future demands on our system, the infrastructure needs, and it would give us a basis for updating our system development charges. Those charges, the last time they were updated was 2017, and the plans are approaching, one plan is over a decade-year old, and another plan is 2 decades old. The water plan is $102,000, and the sewer plan is $53,000. Personnel administration. This budget includes funding for a 5% merit increase. This would be a merit increase, not a cost of living adjustment. Employees would need a meets or exceeds recommendations on their annual performance review. Our pay plan is also, we have some employees who are maxed out on the pay plan. So by the end of this fiscal year, I anticipate if this is funded, going to City Council to push the pay plan forward so that all city employees will be able to take advantage of that. The budget also includes funding for a part-time librarian with an anticipated start date in January. Once the library is up and running, after 1 to 2 years is possible, we're going to have to look at making that a full-time position. But for now, this is budgeted as a half-time position. There are also 2 seasonal grounds maintenance positions. They would work about 10 to 20 hours per week in late spring, early fall to help out the Public Works Department. Other budget items, there's a recommended income survey. This would help us determine if we're eligible for community development block grant funding or funding through USDA rural development. The data that they have currently show that we do not meet their household income level. In other words, we're too rich of a community. I suspect that those numbers might be skewed. So the income survey would actually determine household income, and if we meet the CDBG and rural development requirements, then that would make us eligible for potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars for water, sewer. It can also go to economic development, community facilities such as the city hall. That's budgeted at $10,000. Projects that are not funded include a new phone system. We do need a new phone system. That's about $8,100 based on a scope that Lane Council of Governments gave us. I do have a meeting with them in a couple of weeks. They said they have some grant writers who are pretty good at tracking down funds to pay for these kinds of items. Second is a police vehicle for the city of Oak Ridge. I spoke with their police chief today, and the key justification for that is to provide transportation for our reserve officer who works with us and lives in the community so that he could have a quicker response time. Based on some vehicle issues that they're working through, he might not have a vehicle at all the time that he can take advantage of. So he would have to go to Oak Ridge, get a vehicle, and come back. So this would help his response time. The chief did say that the only thing that he really needs is a radio. That would bring that down to $6,000. I would like, as we have our discussions tonight, to see if we could possibly add that back to the budget because I see value to that. And a utility increase of 3% for water and sewer is included in the budget to keep up with the cost of doing business. One last note on the American Rescue Plan. We are slated to receive $240,000 from the federal government. We would anticipate receiving that in June or July of this year, half the next year. You can use those monies for one of four purposes. The first is direct response to COVID. Second is premium pay to essential workers. The third is offsetting lost revenues. And the fourth is water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. I've included $140,000 in the general fund, $100,000 in the water fund. I anticipate that the U.S. Treasury Department will issue detailed guidance on how we can actually spend those monies when we receive them. But for now, I have them in the budget as a placeholder. I want to acknowledge several teammates who assisted me in getting the numbers together on this budget. The first is Joyce Donnell, our city clerk. She was instrumental in looking at all of our bills and contracts and helping me figure out what ongoing costs we need to put in the budget. Our public works director did a great job putting the water sewer budgets together, parks, and the other public works budgets. And our contract accountant, Laylee Nichols, helped me get the debt service numbers. It did a lot of proofreading. As far as next steps, we do have a second budget committee meeting scheduled for May 12th. It's already been advertised and it's out there if you need it. The budget committee can vote on recommending approval of the budget as presented. This is a first draft. I fully anticipate that the committee and city council will make changes. If we get into making detailed changes tonight, I would suggest letting staff take those changes back and presenting a final draft to you at your second meeting. I recommend that city council hold a public hearing to get public input before final adoption, which I recommend take place in June. At this point, I'll pause for questions. And after that, I will be happy if you want to delve into the line item detail.
So Jeremy, on the grants for the park, is there any writing in there that says that we have to use certified contracted workers to do any of that work.
I don't know the answer to that question, Lon. I would have to look at their grant manual. But at a minimum, they probably have competitive procurement requirements that we're going to have to follow.
Maureen has a question. Go ahead, Maureen.
Okay,
So two questions. Thanks for the information on some questions. So assuming that Lowell Patrol, what we used to call Lowell Patrol from Oak Ridge, had to have worked in their cost of the vehicle to their price. If the city of Lowell provides a vehicle, then does that negotiate that price downward?
they are actually going to provide the vehicle. So the only cost to us is to put a radio in there.
And that's what you were saying, that's why it's going down. That wasn't in your plan. That's just what you just said just recently. Did I misunderstand that?
So the $12,000 that's referenced in the budget message includes a whole bunch of other stuff like graphics, laptop, software, a radar. The $6,000, and they were still going to provide just the vehicle. The $6,000 is just to provide the radio, which the police chief told me today is all that they need. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, wow. Radio. Okay, I only have one other question, and that's on this income study. So I'm not aware of this because I don't recall, again, I'm a product of my past at my emeritus status here now, in my old age. I don't recall any of this about qualifying for CDBG money that way. Who does the study? Who would you contract with for the study? Is that LCOG?
LCOG could possibly do that. The Portland State University, they have I've heard them reference as the resource that are frequently used for doing these kinds of studies.
So if there's no study, how is it known that we don't qualify?
What Business Oregon, who runs the CDBG program, what they go by to determine eligibility is census information. So census surveys that are sent out to communities. And whenever you send out surveys, they can be skewed. Typically, the more well-to-do people are more likely to turn in a survey, and that might impact the numbers that they have. If we were to do our own survey, we would have researchers come into the city. They would actually go house to house and get some numbers from on the ground.
So we had this a few years back. Some of you are going to recall this for about the population study, because we had an issue with some things here. So that's what I'm just a little concerned about is who does it and what their intention is and how it would stand up versus census data that's interpreted by someone else. Because as I read in the paper, the census data is delayed. So I assume that you would wait until after that's all figured out.
Most likely, if this is funded, I would like to have more conversations with people who have actually done these studies before moving forward, just to make sure that it's going to be worth our time. Because it might be that we're it might be that we're so far above the threshold that it wouldn't be worth our time, but I put it in there as a placeholder and something that to explore. If people who have been through this before say it would be worth our time, then we would have the money already budgeted.
No, I'm not saying it's not worth our time. I think it's really important. I just, it's kind of like hiring an expert witness, I hire mine, you hire yours, they disagree and that sort of stuff. And so I just wouldn't want us to waste our money if then Business Oregon wasn't gonna support it, or if the intention is a little skewed. So I don't want to be involved in it. You're doing fine. These are just some questions that I've had based on some experiences in the past.
I think I can clarify that. Before we would actually do the study, we would have to go to Business Oregon and they would have to sign off on the researchers that they would use. Whenever they sign off on it, if the study shows that we actually do meet the income requirements, and they would accept that, and then we're automatically eligible.
Great, thank you.
All right, Mr. Chairman, Tim has his hand up.
Yeah, regarding the outfitting of the Oak Ridge police vehicle, I believe we operate on a year-to-year contract, possibly a little longer with the Oak Ridge Police Department for their services. I would have concerns that we would need some kind of verbiage or language regarding either reimbursement or their purchasing. If we're going to spend money to outfit an Oak Ridge police vehicle, we risk losing our investment every year if we choose or they choose not to keep the contract ongoing. And, if it's a radio, that's pretty simple, but it really doesn't do us any good to get the radio back and then have a $6,000 radio that's for police services, for the city of Lowell to own that. So I just think I understand their request and their concerns and how it affects our services in the city of Lowell. But it's just, I think that's a big unknown that needs to be investigated a little bit more, and maybe some verbiage within the contract, or some verbiage or some negotiations before we extend that kind of money to purchase those items for that police vehicle.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Tim. Do we have any other questions for Jeremy? Jeremy, do you want to go ahead and continue on with your presentation of the budget?
Yes, so I'll go through the fund summaries. And what I'm going to do is pull up my spreadsheet where I'm going to pick out the different accounts and highlight the major changes and just go through that. Okay, so right now you're looking at my budget spreadsheet. And let's see, Mr. Bill, are you able to see?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I have the general fund pulled up. This is the current budget. This is projected. This is recommended. This is the dollar change from recommended to budget. So we see loan principal, recommended, projected, or budget. And this is a little. Just trying to get my worksheet set up. So see, in this account, $298,000. This was the early payoff of the loan for the East Main Street properties. And if you also want to follow along on page 13, where I have the major changes in expenditures highlighted. The next account, buildings and facilities, 185,700 change. Well, and that includes right-of-way acquisition for East Main Street. As we might not need to spend all of that money. That is for acquiring right-of-way for the East Main Street property that the city bought. The county is requesting that we pay $45,700 for that right-of-way. Like I said, it's possible we might not have to spend all of that, but I took a conservative approach and put that in there. That also includes $140,000 for the American Rescue Plan. So both of those are included in there. And the $140,000, that I put it in building and facilities with the hope that we could possibly justify direct COVID response for a city hall project or something of that nature. So it's in there as a placeholder. The 4208520 account, parts improvements, $185,000, 14 change. That includes budgeting the $740,000 for the Rolling Rock Park project. Unappropriated ending fund balance. You don't need to worry about that right now. That was just included to make my budget a little easier. Loan principal, Rolling Rock Park, $68,171. This includes $8,171 for our current loan that we're going to have to start paying off, as well as $60,000 projected debt payment if we do take out a new loan for Rolling Rock Park. $21,500. This would be, we're anticipating putting in new irrigation at both of the parks. This would pay be to pay the water bill for that. I've already had some conversations with Public Works ongoing on reactivating our wells, so it's possible we could use well water and not have to spend that money. Other contract services. This is for the cleaning service at the park. With the COVID restrictions having to do with frequent cleaning, we hired a cleaning service to clean the park once a week and to do a deep cleaning. This would continue that service. Engineering services. We've spent a lot of money on engineering services based on the development that's going on in the city. What is currently budgeted does not keep up with the current trends and with the anticipated increases in building. I expect that to go up. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay. The other contract services, the $10,000 change, I will have to see my notes here. Oh, this would be to demolish the vacant house on the East Main Street property. I understand based on our prior experience in building or in burning vacant houses and carting away the debris, that it's probably not going to cost that much. The loan interest for Rolling Rock Park, that is a new expense. This loan interest is for the interest only loan on the East Main Street properties. The 6339 account That has to do with the city's property that was donated by the Nelsons. We currently have a balance of $6,800. I'm anticipating appropriating all of that and adding additional resources so that we can clean up the blackberries on that property. And those are all the changes over $10,000. Do we want to keep, do we want to continue with all of the changes? Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. Moving on to revenues for the general funds, this 343,000 change. This is for selling the city's East Main Street property. We might not, this is the, if we were to recoup all of our investment in that, it's possible. We're not going to recoup all of that, but I'll put the more conservative number so we can avoid a supplemental budget. This also has the sale of the North Highland property. This change is the loan proceeds for Rolling Rock Park. We did have some loan proceeds budgeted this year for the park that we did not acquire, but that's what's added this year. Parks operating grant, this is for the Land and Wildlife Conservation Fund. The library capital grant, we have this is for the Ford Foundation grant and a contribution that Lane County has said that they are prepared to make to help with the project. And those are the major revenue changes over $10,000. Any questions on those items, or do we want to drill down further? Okay. So on the general fund, page 19, we have a projected beginning balance as on July 1 of $410,000. On page 20, a projected ending balance on June 30, 2022, if we spend everything that we say we're going to spend, of $180,000. And the reason the fund balance is so high projected this year is because we budgeted a lot of stuff this year that for a lot of projects that we didn't start or complete this year. Any questions before I move on to the building fund? Okay, the building fund, page 21, that just has anticipated building inspections of about 10 new homes this year. It balances, so all the revenues we receive from inspection fees have to be in this fund, and everything that we spend out of this fund has to be spent on administering the building code. That's paying our code professionals as well as our costs of administering the building inspections in the city. Any questions on the building fund? Okay. We'll move on to the water fund. And Max, are you able to see this?
Yep, I can
Max,
see it, Jeremy. Yeah,
Okay. I thought I'd give you the opportunity, if you want to speak to some of these changes, we can go down it real quick.
okay.
So the
Just
first
top
one-
of the list.
Yes.
Let me get this set up here, sorry. So for the water fund, equipment and furnishings, the changes there was to purchase some capital at the facility. So one of them would be a leak detection equipment and some other necessary items. These are not large capitals, just several small ones that we anticipate making. The utility worker too, that's just to clean up. We actually have 2 people in that position. Other contract services, that would be, I don't know what that one is, Jeremy. Oh, that would be, I'm sorry, engineering some engineering stuff that would also be contract services, that annual memberships and things that we just paid in, OAW, PNCWA. Can you guys hear me? I think getting a lot of blank stares. Okay. The rest of the things there are just changes. Obviously PERS changes, the salaries go up, PERS go up, workers' comp and so on. We did make some changes, not that they're major, but in equipment repair and maintenance. Anticipate some capital projects this year, just repairs, nothing major. So any questions? Anything else on there?
Everything else is just the increases in cost of doing business. Okay, I've got the revenues pulled up now, Max.
Okay. So grant revenues, we have a little bit of money in there for a grant that Civil West is going out for our water master plan. And then also, I believe some of the federal monies there. Is that correct, Jeremy?
That's correct.
Okay. Water sewer sales shows an increase. That's just the 3% increase. And also factor in the 10 additional homes that we're planning on receiving this year. And then bulk water sales has been something that's became very popular over the last couple of years. So we budgeted this, just anticipate some projects. We're currently selling bulk water right now. So put some money in there.
Okay. Any questions about the water fund? Okay, we'll move on to the sewer fund. And we don't need to worry about that.
So same thing on the utility worker. This is originally it was both the other two employees were put in one category. So this is just separating them out in separate line items. So you're going to see a pretty big change there. That's just their time allocated for 2 line items as opposed to 1 like it was before. And then keep in mind this in the sewer fund. Refuse services. The reason for the increase on this, yes, we do pay our garbage out of here, but we also budgeted the biosolids haul off. We have an anticipated budget number between 5,000 and 7,000 for that. So we include that in there as a placeholder. Non-capitalized assets, that's just a couple tools, necessary tools for the trade, changing out some of the older stuff. Equipment and furnaces, that's some safety equipment. So a handrail, some steps to get one of the primary clarifier. Other contract services, this is the DRC fee that we paid historically, it's included in there. And then other contract service or OAW memberships. And then the rest of that pretty much down is the standard increases.
Any questions about these items? Expenditures in the sewer fund. Okay, we'll move on to the revenues in the sewer fund.
Okay, grant revenue, same. That is the 20,000 from Civil West thinks we'll be getting for the master plan. So we put that in there. Sewer sales, that's just the projected 3% increase and the 10 new homes. Sewer's easy because it's flat rate. And then no other big changes in revenue for sewer.
Okay, any questions before we move on to street fund? Okay, we'll move on to street fund. Okay, Max, I'll let you continue if you want.
Okay. Yep, so street fund, no big changes there. Probably the biggest one, same, separating the utility worker 2 position out, giving it separate line item since we have 2 of them. Other than that is just the standard increases, health insurance, PERS, and stuff like that. No big changes in the street fund, pretty consistent.
We also have a new loan from Business Oregon. So
Oh, we do for the project, that's right.
So that includes the payments for that. Revenues are pretty much what we get from the state, the highway distribution funds. Any questions about street fund before we move on to Blackberry Jam Festival fund? Okay, we'll move to Blackberry Jam. Blackberry Jam was canceled this year. We're still going to have the quilt raffle. We still have to pay rent on our storage for stuff. And we still pay some IT services. We have some fund balance remaining in that fund. We have quilt raffle in there to offset the quilt program. It's pretty simple this year. Any questions about Blackberry Jam Fund? Okay, we'll go to Parks SDC Fund. The only thing budgeted in this fund is $5,000 for a plan. The city code says that there has to be an adopted plan for what we're going to spend SDC money on. So this would be to have the engineer prepare something so that we could meet legal requirements to start spending money out of this fund. Any questions about Parks SDC Fund? Okay, we'll move to Street SDC Fund. Again, there's $5,000 so that we can look at updating our streets plan and start tapping into street SDC monies. Water SDC Fund. The only thing budgeted out of the Water SDC Fund is the master plan project. Sewer SDC Fund. The only thing budgeted is city engineering services for the water master or the sewer master plan. Stormwater SDC Fund. We don't have anything, any requirements anticipated out of the stormwater SDC fund, so nothing is budgeted for that. Water Reserve Fund. This has to do with our USDA loans. They require us to put aside a certain amount of money so that we can meet debt service if we ever run out of resources. This is fully funded. We don't need to put anything else in there. We just keep it there until we're ready to use it to pay off, make the final loan payment. Sewer Reserve Fund, that's the same deal. This is fully funded. Pull it up here on my spreadsheet. It's fully funded. We don't need to spend anything out of it. The money just sits there until we're able to pay off the loan. So that is a highlight of major changes. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer questions or to turn it over to the committee for discussion amongst themselves.
Sorry, Jeremy, I was sidetracked with something going on in the fire department. Can you repeat your question?
Yes, that concludes my presentation and a review of the major changes in line item accounts. I'm happy to answer any questions or to turn it over to the budget committee for deliberation.
Is there any questions for Jeremy regarding any of the information you just presented? I would be looking to the budget committee for any direction.
Do you do public comments? Do you do that?
We do have public comments as next on the agenda.
Is there any public present for public comments? Is there any other discussion regarding the information that Jeremy Cottle presented?
Okay.
At this time, then we would go to the public hearing on potential uses of state revenue. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we'll open the public hearing at 7:50 PM. The purpose of this hearing is to provide the public with an opportunity to suggest potential uses of state revenue sharing funds. The city of Lowell anticipates receiving the following for fiscal year 2021-22: state revenue sharing of 11,000, cigarette tax of 3,407, liquor tax 22,000, marijuana tax 6,000. Is there any public comment on these revenues? Is there any questions or concerns through the committee? The public hearing is closed at 7:51. And we'll take considerations of the fiscal year 21-22 tax rate of 2.1613.
I move to approve the fiscal tax year 2021-22 tax rate of 2.1613 per $1,000 of excess value.
I'll second that.
I have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor state aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, I'll be looking for consideration of the fiscal year 2021-22 utility rates.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item is presented for information. As mentioned in my budget presentation, the recommended budget includes a recommended increase to water and sewer utility rates of 3% to keep up with the cost of doing business. No action is required at this time. If approved in the budget, staff would present a resolution to City Council in May or June timeframe to enact those increases. But again, that's presented for information and discussion amongst budget committee members.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or discussion regards to utility rates? Hearing none, I'll look for a consideration of the fiscal year 2021-22 proposed budget.
I make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget for the city of Lowell, Oregon, in the amount of $4,498,031, of which $1,073,724 is unapproved and reserved.
I second that.
I have a first and a second. Do I have any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. We don't have anything on there for other business, so the next thing will be adjournment.
Mr. Chair, before we adjourn, I'd like to make one last statement. I'd just like to thank the budget committee members for their time tonight. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to call me, email me. Happy to have a socially distanced meeting in my office. I'm here to support you.
And Jeremy, this is Gail. I'd just like to say thank you for your putting this together. I think it was pretty clear. You set it up in a way that was really easy to made it really efficient. So just want to say thanks for your hard work. I think it was a great job.
Second.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Lon Drott for accepting the committee chairmanship. That was mighty great of him to do that. What a volunteer for the city he is.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that.
Yay.
We all second that.
Yeah, you better.
If there's nothing further, looks like we could be adjourned at 7:56.
Wow, that's efficient. Good night, everybody.
Good night, folks.
Night, everybody.